staying tonight.
Mics are on.
Mics are on.
All right, so we're going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on August 14th, 2019. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Laws. Here. Alderman Karen. Here. Alderman Herrick Gathright. Alderman Kelly is here. Alderman Clee. And the chair, Mayor Donchis.
I'm here.
Great.
So next item is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the committee? Apparently not. Communications. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding Gillig change order for 2 electric hybrid buses. I will get it, I promise. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept and place on file.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Okay. I believe we have to take from table the communication regarding the contract renewal with the Humane Society of Greater Nashua. That is a motion.
Motion is to take the next item, the contract renewal, from the table. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the item is before us. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract renewal with the Humane Society of Greater Nashua for FY20. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and approve the contract renewal with the Humane Society of Greater Nashua in the amount of $99,081. Funds are available in Department 109, Civic and Community Services, General Operating Fund.
Discussion? Alderman O'Brien.
There seems to have been some past questions with this, and is this the one with the gentleman that had the cats and everything? So with Mr. Coogan or yourself, can you just give us a brief update of that and where we sit right now with that?
Do you mind if I chat?
Yeah, why don't you do it?
So I think there were 2 pieces to that, and Alderman Cleakin, there was a piece of legislation that'll be coming up, but also the contract. And for me, the contract didn't include chickens, so that had been updated. But the other piece you're talking about is a piece of legislation that will be coming up, right? Yeah.
So the contract does suggest that we, under certain circumstances, that it's possible that the city would pick up cats. It's not the city's practice to do so, but the health department and Director Bagley is here. I believe thinks that there are certain circumstances under which where, for reasons of health, for example, if the cat's got rabies or something like that, we would need to pick the cat up. And of course, Dr. Stephanie Wolf Rosenblum spoke to that at the last meeting. So, of course, it's the pleasure of the committee, but the only possible discussion point is our cats removed from the contract. But otherwise, it's the same contract that we've had with the Humane Society for years. Alderwoman Kelly.
Clee.
Sorry, Clee. Alderwoman Clee.
It's because we look alike so much. So.
Well, no, you both are Ks, so, you know.
And we got L's and an E in there too. So, as far as the change to the ordinance, basically what we did was we just clarified the statement of that. It did say that we would basically impound dogs, cats, ferrets, and chickens, but the underlying paragraphs didn't specifically outline that we would do it for whatever the reasons were, and so we introduced that, I believe, yesterday, and it will be going on to the appropriate committee for approval. I don't think it should hold this up because there was really nothing wrong with our ordinance. I just asked for it to be clarified to make sure, in fact, that we would do that. The biggest hang-up, I think, on the contract did not have anything to do with the cats. It was really about the chickens.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. And I'm satisfied, and thank you for your explanation. I know this has been somewhat newsworthy of late,
Yeah.
and having recently had to put down the family pet, our dog and everything, I think I look back at it as one of the most kindest thing that I could do for that animal. He was hurt and wasn't the same fella that, you know, that was with us. And, you know, he'll always be with us in our minds and hearts. But sometimes when you deal with animals, they do get sometimes a little bit much. So we need this contract, and I support it. Because at times, I'm not necessarily going to say a nuisance, but at times they get into some things, and the public does need to have a venue that is available to remove them if that is the case. So I am supportive, but thank you for your explanation.
Alderwoman Cleve.
I just want to add one thing, and again, I don't believe it has anything to do with this contract, but that particular ordinance, the things that we did add were the specific wording of nuisance, stray, or that it was deemed or felt that this animal was harmed in any way. And just to clarify something else, I did have someone who said to me, why don't we just put animals rather than specific type things? And the reason for it, if we put something like nuisance or stray, if someone called and said, I've got a squirrel that's a real nuisance, that's eating at my roof and so on, we would have to go and pick up every squirrel in Nashua, and we really don't want to do that. So we do want to be as specific as possible. That doesn't mean that if someone put an alligator into our sewer system, we're not going to go pick it up because it's not in the ordinance. We would, in fact, go and do that. Probably call the state to come and take care of that one, or a bear or something. You
call me.
I would find an
or
alligator
Alderman
a
Law
nuisance
said-
myself personally.
But anyway, so I just wanted to clarify that what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of NPD storage server with a value of $39,732. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Access Business Solutions in the amount of $39,732. Source of funding is Department 150, Police Department, General Operating Fund.
I think there's someone here from the PD. If we have any questions, why don't you come on up? You can just sit down if you want. We may not really have questions, but make yourself comfortable. Would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Peter Simfo. I'm the IT manager over at the police department.
Does anybody have any questions, comments about this item? Alderman Laws.
Thank you. Just a curiosity, so I was looking at the bids. They vary wildly.
They do. The largest numbered one is straight from the manufacturer, HP.
Okay.
So they offer, that's like basically like retail. They offer better prices, obviously, to vendors, and that's where those prices get.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract for engineering services for Heritage Rail Trail East. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to CMA Engineers, Inc. in the amount of $166,398. Funds are available in Department 181, Community Development, NH. Heritage Trail East Grant.
I believe Ms. Chisholm is here if we do have questions, but she's... I'm not sure I can answer any. I can probably answer the question, but you're here on various items, right? Well, this is for the engineering of the Rail Trail East. We're going to come up with a different name, but this goes from City Hall to Henry Hangar. We have about $1 million grant, including this plus the city match, to pay for this, and this would, of course, do the engineering. It's about 0.6 of a mile long. Discussion, questions? All those in favor of the question of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding Hydroelectric Bond Fund. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Normand Dew Associates in an amount not to exceed $361,230. Source of funding is Department 181, Community Development Bond Funds.
Now, I think Ms. Chisholm is here on this, right? So why don't you come on up? could you give us an explanation of the project and what the project is?
Sure. The overall project is the relicensing of the Mine Falls hydroelectric facility. We've only got a couple years left on the current license, and we're hoping to be relicensed for a 40-year term. And as part of that, we had put out a pre-application document that essentially explained the history of the facility and the dam and how things were operating, and that allowed pretty much anyone in the public arena, but also and primarily state and federal agencies to comment on our application. And as part of that, there are several agencies who typically work together in a group that had suggested various studies that we perform as part of our relicensing project. And so we went through the purchasing process to hire a contractor to help us with that because the studies, there were about 8 of them, and they're quite extensive and certainly are better off done by a contractor. So we went through the hiring process with the purchasing process and interviewed we got 3 submittals on our request for qualifications, and we interviewed all 3 of those groups, and Normando came out as our preferred vendor. So as part of our process, we wanted to make sure that we were getting a qualified vendor and selecting them on their qualifications and not on their pricing. So the way we had set it up was that once we got what we prefer, the contractor that we preferred based on their submittals, we then asked them to pull together a scope of work based on our pre-application document and their knowledge on how this relicensing process actually works. So they put together a scope and they gave us the cost. And if you had looked at the cost, what they had provided us was a range. And that's essentially based on what we're hoping will be some bit of negotiations with the agencies, that they had pulled together all of these studies, and some of them are appropriate for our facility and some of them are not. And some of them can be modified, which is also one of the reasons why we had selected Normando. We thought that they would be a really good fit to work with us and the agencies to make sure that we were all at the table and coming to some conclusions on how these studies were going to be borne out. So what they had provided us was essentially what they considered to be a minimum and a maximum estimate on the costing. So the contract that is before you is an amount not to exceed. We had selected the max in case the agencies didn't seem all that great with negotiating any parts of the studies that were suggested.
Alderwoman Clee.
When I was looking at the implementation of the study plan, it talks about, that's why I had to go look for it, a full study, a reduced study, or a minimum study.
Right.
Is that based on these conversations that you have with these different groups as to which study we would go to, or is it, would we know before we went in starting to talk to people?
Well,
And what are the differences?
well,
Sorry about that.
Normando has done all of these studies for various clients, so they know what the very strict requirements are, and so the amount really won't be known until after we can sit down with Normando and the agencies, Fish and Wildlife, New Hampshire DES, until we sit down with them and actually have discussions about, do we absolutely have to do this? And if they say yes, well, that's the max value. And if they say, no, there's some wiggle room here, we have the ability to do this or this, that's why they had provided us with that, like I said, with that range for a couple of the studies.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding DPW Facility Construction Manager. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Harvey Construction Corporation in the amount of $25,000. Funds are available in Department 161 Streets, Capital Infrastructure Improvements.
This is to retain Harvey to evaluate how to improve the rather decrepit public works facilities that we have, whether it makes more sense to consolidate in one location. or if it makes sense to expand in place or improve the various facilities that are spread all over the city. This wouldn't need to be paid until we proceed with the project, or at least the first phase of it, and the cost is $25,000. Yes, Alderwoman Clee.
I am all for this. I think this is something that we've needed for a while. And the conditions that some of our employees have to work in, I think the sooner we get this done, the better. And the sooner that we get to look at these places and make a decision as to what's going to happen, whether it's moving, whether it's consolidating, whether it's just fixing the areas. That is what this report will tell us, right? Which is the best model to move on.
Correct.
I am definitely all for this, and the sooner the better.
Discussion, anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding the Sanborn Mapping Co. Change Order 1, Ortho Imagery and Photogrammetric Mapping, Project Phase 2. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and contingent upon Board of Aldermen approval, approve change order number 1 to the contract with the Sanborn Mapping Co. in the amount of $135,551. Source of funding is Department 134 GIS, $41,951. Department 168 Solid Waste, $15,600. And Department 169 Wastewater, $78,000.
Good evening, my name is Pete Cahalmi, I'm the Deputy City Engineer. This project is an update to our Geographic Information System. GIS is essentially, it's like a smart map, it's a digital map. It's not like looking at a paper map, it's a map on a computer that is interactive. You can touch and pick features. You can click on a pipe or a catch basin and it'll bring up information about it. And it hasn't been updated in 20 years. We do a flyover every couple of years. We have a pilot who specializes in mapping, and they'll fly over, and we get digital pictures to update the pictures. But the actual information in the GIS system hasn't been updated in 20 years. So there are structures missing. There are pieces of infrastructure that are not shown, or pieces of infrastructure that are shown and not there anymore. Things like tree lines, catch basins, even new streets, they may not be shown on our GIS system. And it's an extremely powerful tool. GIS is used by every department in the city. So we're looking to finally update our GIS system after 20 years.
Questions, comments? Alderman O'Brien.
Just a comment, coming from the fire department roots, and we have used that, and particularly in the example of an auto or severe accident with fluid spills that can get into the water supply, and the particular mapping that you're looking at, is that connected or not? Gone is sometimes just a little decal over that storm drain, that tells you goes to a freshwater supply. So it's good to have the GIS capability that's in some of the apparatus right now. So fantastic, yes.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of one Ford F-350 4x4 truck with plow. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to MHQ in the amount of $41,517. Funds are available in Department 177 Parks and Rec Surf.
So our fleet manager is here to, if you have any questions, I don't know, this is pretty self-explanatory, I think. Any comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of one 6-wheel cab and chassis truck. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Liberty International in the amount of $88,785. Funds are available in Department 177, Parks and Rec Surf.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly? Now, you got other items, right? You could stay there. I mean, you don't have to keep getting up and down.
Oh, yeah, there's
Okay.
like 7.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding landfill engineer services. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Sanborn Head and Associates in the amount of $270,000. Source of funding is Department 168, Solid Waste. Skipped a
Our
line.
Superintendent.
Good evening. Superintendent Jeff LaFleur, Solid Waste Department.
Since this involves the landfill, why don't you give us the explanation?
Absolutely. This is our engineering firm that does all of our landfill extra engineering. I have an engineer, landfill engineer that helps me with permits. These guys actually deal with DES, and they take care of all of my groundwater permits, my landfill gas designs and everything. And they've been great. They take care of all of our air permits, greenhouse gas emissions reports. We went up a little bit this year to 90,000 from the 80,000. We're finding that DES is implementing more and more stringent requirements on us, and that could require us doing some more reporting. And then, just to make this clear, this is a 3-year contract.
That's my question.
Discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of one 2020 Ford F-250 4x4 pickup truck. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to MHQ in the amount of $45,742. Funds are available in Department 168, Solid Waste Surf.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of one 6-wheel cab and chassis truck. I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Liberty International in the amount of $88,900. Funds are available in Department 161, Streets, Surf.
Questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of one Caterpillar 938M wheel loader. I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Milton Cat in the amount of $252,400. Source of funding is Department 161, Streets, Surf.
Since this is a bigger item, maybe you should give us a little explanation on this one. It's pretty
Sure,
self-explanatory.
yeah, it's self-explanatory. We're replacing a loader that we have right now, a 2008, that has upwards of 8,000 hours on it. And it's showing some signs of wear and tear. We have some electrical issues going on it. And we also, we need to get a scale system. So rather than buy a separate scale system, this loader will also have a scale system in it so we can measure our loads, and especially with loading salt in that, we'll know how much salt we're putting on the truck so as not to overload them, and just how much salt we're going through every storm. Be able to track it better.
Questions, discussion? Alderwoman Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we have a lot of purchases for vehicles. How are we doing after this in terms of replacement? Do you have, are you pretty,
Trucks we're pretty well caught up on, the equipment as well. It's the small stuff, sidewalk tractors are coming
Okay.
up. And
all right, so we're really kind of catching up and doing, okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Clee.
I'm going to ask a question that Alderman Laws has asked in the past, just because I want clarification of it, and for those that are listening. The trucks that we kind of put to the boneyard, so to speak, I know they don't just go to a junkyard and a boneyard. Do we get any money for them,
we
or?
don't trade them because we don't get a lot of money when they get to that point. I usually talk with Dan and we put it on the public auction website.
And then whatever we get from the auction is just
It's usually,
minimum?
no, it's usually quite a bit more than the dealers will give us on a trade.
Okay, Good, glad to hear that. Thank you.
Alderman Laws.
Thank you. I'd also like to add to that, one of the things that I enjoyed about this very brief finance agenda was there were several items that you, instead of saying that you were going to put them immediately up for auction, you're going to continue using them
Yeah, we use them backline
in addition, which I
until
think is
something
great.
big happens and
Yep.
then people are willing to spend crazy money.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of one 2020 Ford Fusion Hybrid SE. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to MHQ in the amount of $25,550. Funds are available in Department 160, Administration Engineering, SURF.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Unfinished, thank you very much. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Referrals from the Board of Aldermen from the meeting of August 13th.
I have a new business item. Do you
Which
know?
is, no, go ahead with that, sorry.
That's okay.
We got one more item from Alderwoman Kelly.
New business resolutions, I have R19-171.
Yes.
Seen that? Okay, sure. Approving an amendment to the lease with Nashua Ice Center, known as Conway Arena. I move to recommend final passage.
This is the, and Ms. Chisholm is here on this as well, I think, but this is the item that we discussed on the 6th when we had the solar presentation. Conway, assuming approval by the Fire Commission, which we're optimistic we will receive. Conway, the fire department, and the bus garage are the three buildings that we would, at least the three buildings that we would solarize under this contract, Conway being the largest of those. We get the benefits of the scale of three buildings. And they, though, because they've only got 17 years left on their lease, they would like an extension so that they will be able to have confidence that they will have possession of the building for a sufficient time to realize the full benefit of the solar, and in case they want to buy the equipment, which is an option after 5 years, that they could successfully obtain financing to do so. So that's what this resolution would do, extends the lease. Any questions, comments? Alderwoman Kelly?
Yep.
Or excuse me, Alderwoman Karen, sorry.
That's okay.
Everybody's
Oh,
me tonight.
thank you. Thank you. Oh, Mayor, as you know, I was part of this process when Conway came to the city to develop the ice arena, and they have been real good stewards to the community. One of the things that we had talked about back then, and I sit on the funding, is the ability for them to provide grant money to nonprofits throughout the city, most which go to youth service programs. And they have stood by all the things that they said that they would do. And that means working with the schools, working with our youth hockey programs, and working with the city to do their due diligence. So I think to extend this lease is really not, should not be a very difficult decision to make. And if it helps us with our solar power and helps them as well, then that's more money that they'll do for their maintenance and to give out grants. And as Charlie Hall said, since they started, they've given over $700,000 to our programs. And yay for the Fright Night, because they always give park rec.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, and I echo exactly Alderman Karen's. I'm a little tainted with this. My son is involved with youth hockey at the Conway, and I'll tell you, it's a wonderful program, wonderful facility. I've been to Tingsboro in my time, played in many others, and Conway's a very nice place, so I think it's outstanding. Plus, I just want to make a public service announcement. People seem to forget, but during public skating. It's an excellent way in the summertime. It's the ultimate cool-off if you go strap on your skates and go for a couple of turns around the rink, which would be good. But yeah, I definitely do support this. And it will give them a long-term effect to get the benefits of the solar, which is another benefit to us. So, very good.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? And the resolution is recommended for final passage. Alderwoman Kelly.
Resolution 19172, authorizing the mayor to enter into power purchase agreement and lease with Revision Energy. I move to recommend final passage.
And Ms. Chisholm can explain it again. I don't know, she did explain this on the 6th.
I did explain briefly, but you had already provided an extensive summary. So essentially what the mayor said, we're looking to put solar on 2 of our municipal buildings, and we are working with Revision Energy. We went through the purchasing process, looking for the right solar vendor, and as it turns out, Revision Energy was and has been a great match for us. They've been very patient and they've been excellent at looking at alternatives. We had originally contemplated putting solar on the streets department garage, but as you can see from tonight's earlier approval of the contract, they're looking to do something to the streets department garage, which really sort of puts off the opportunity of using that for solar. And so, as the mayor had mentioned, the efficiencies of having a big building, a large roof, really came to us. I don't know. It just sort of appeared like, why don't we use Conway? I mean, here we are standing looking at the streets department garage and going, oh wait, look at this. So it really, Revision has been great in working with us to maintain what they had originally offered us, which was an excellent electricity rate of 8.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So they, again, Revision Energy has done a great job of actually going through, part of the process is you can't just put solar on any roof. And so they've gone through and done extensive evaluations of both the transit garage and the fire station on Lake Street. They've looked at a couple other rooftops, but at this point, what we're really trying to do, and why I'm here tonight for finance after just getting it first reading last night, is there are some tax credits that will go away, will be reduced actually at the end of December. So we're trying to move this through, and Revision Energy is very hot to get solar on rooftops for municipal buildings in Nashua, to add that to their, of course, cadre of other stuff that they do. And we're very excited about it as well, for the first time to have solar on municipal buildings. So if there are questions about details, I can try to answer them. Dan Weeks is typically the go-to person for details, but I've heard it a few times, so I might be able to help.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I just have a comment. Kudos, first of all, to Revision. I think they did an incredible job with the details when they presented to us was it last week? It was last week.
Yeah.
You can tell they're very passionate about it and know so much. So I think we're in good hands there. Also, just my own personal excitement for this, being on the Energy Environment Committee, we really are pushing for us to be more or less reliant on things that are not renewable. And so this is one big step. When I sat down with Alderman McCarthy, he asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want solar in the city. And that was the very first thing I said to him. So he'd be proud, and I'm pretty proud.
Alderwoman Clee.
I was not here for that meeting. I was sick, but I was watching it. I watched it live, and the excitement from Mr. Weeks and his partner was palpable. He was quite excited about it, and I agree with you. He gave quite a bit of detail. I think the citizens that were watching it, much like I did, learned a lot, and it was quite interesting to learn about the purchasing it later on and so on. And having them do this roof with Conway, I think shows a real private public. We needed the space, they needed that, and where we worked in cooperation. And I think the fact that Revision has gone through so much to help to make that happen, I think this is a great contract. Thank you.
All those in favor of the contract say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and the resolution is recommended for final passage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the record of expenditures?
I move that the Finance Committee has complied with city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period of July 1st, 2019 to July 11th, 2019, and from July 12th, 2019 to August 1st, 2019.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. General discussion? Is this general?
All right, yeah, I'll wait.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Alderman Laws.
I was just gonna say, it's another public service. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people are watching this at home, but go on the GIS application on the city website, and it's a good way to kill a few hours of your life. You'll be very impressed at all the things that you can learn about the city, your neighbors.
Your neighbors.
That was general. That was pretty
I
good.
was trying to keep it broad.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else for general discussion? Public comments? I don't see anyone from the public here, so no public comment. Remarks by Alderman. Alderman Laws. Anyone else? Remarks by Alderman. Alderman O'Brien.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And the Finance Committee meeting is adjourned at 7:38.